Jamcast.
Fucking ridiculous. No one did this for me.
Jeez. Well, you seem to be okay helping people out. I mean, I appreciate you coming here and doing this podcast.
No,
this is huge for me because, I'm just getting into this stuff and I'm looking for those moments, those career moments. I've had several of them in the music business, and that's something I want to talk with you about. For me, in my world, you have a song. You get that one song that happens. In your world, you have you have your story. For you, obviously, it was The Machine.
Yeah.
That was a life changer for you, right?
Yeah.
And
it was a life changer it was a 5-year life changer. Meaning it was like, imagine having, I'm trying to think if there was if there's an example of this in the music industry. Imagine writing a song about America surviving and persevering in 1995,
right?
And everyone's like, oh no, I've heard that. It's not. I mean, it's not the best song, but I've heard that.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, 9/11 happens. You're like, that's my song.
Right.
Like that's in a weird way. That's how. Because I told the Machine story on Rogan probably 2004. No. I told the Machine story on Rogan probably 6 years ago.
Right.
And people heard it. And it got passed around. A lot of people were like, that's the best story ever.
Right.
But it wasn't until it went viral on Facebook that everyone heard it and was like, oh my God. Like people say shit to me like, this girl said to me in Hawaii, she goes, I saw that. And she goes, normally I click off a video if it says 12 minutes.
Right.
It's, by the way, it's a 13-minute video. She goes, I watched the whole thing. I've watched the whole thing 10 times.
Right.
I've made people watch the whole thing. I've never once had someone click off of it.
Wow.
I don't know why, and I wish but yes, that is my cheeseburger in paradise.
And I guess my first question about that is, in my world, when you create that song, when you write that song, or you record that song, sometimes you have an instinct that you got that thing. Did you know? Because when you were on Rogan, you were telling a story about how Rogan was really instrumental in telling you, dude, that is your story. You've got to get out and start performing that. He almost, in a way, forced you to start thinking about performing that in your set, right?
Yeah, he did. Dr. Drew did. That guy I just got off the phone with, Elliot did. Cowhead did. The guy I was telling you about the handguns.
Right.
All my friends, everyone was like, this is your stairway to heaven. But imagine if, it was a really easy story to tell in this setting. Mm-hmm. It was a very easy story to tell in this setting because I could play to your interest in the story and I didn't need you to laugh. But in a comedy club, I had tried it and it just bombed. Right. It bombed because a lot of the people didn't know what I was doing. I was stuck to a bit for 12 minutes and I hadn't fully worked it out. And so I thought I knew better than them. I was like, guys, this isn't a stage story. This is a radio story, a story we tell to friends.
Right.
And they were all like, no, you're wrong. And Rogan was pivotal. He was like, you need to learn to tell it on stage. My favorite part of that whole story is the first time I told it on stage was in Columbus, Ohio. I mean, I told it before, but legit told it on stage. Columbus, Ohio, kid in the front row. They're all chanting The Machine per Rogan's request.
Right.
Kid in the front row goes, I go, guys, I'm not going to tell it. And he goes, Bert, we understand it won't be good, but you have to tell it in order for it to get good. Don't worry.
This is a kid in the audience coaching you at this point?
Fucking kid.
Right.
And I was like, after I've heard that, I was like, okay. I was like, when I was 22, I got involved with the Russian Mafia. Here's how it happened. And they went crazy.
Just erupted.
And I was like, yeah. And then I didn't have any jokes in the middle of it. And I just trudged through a story. And what happens when you tell a story and there's no jokes? You start realizing you're talking faster to get to the next part. And you're like, oh, I bet if I had a joke in the middle of there, I wouldn't have to talk so fast.
Yeah.
So right now I have a couple jokes that are a little longer one's about riding a motorcycle in Vietnam. And
you interject those jokes during the storytelling, during the story.
Yeah. This is a perfect example. This is hacky, but when I went to school at Florida State, I was not a very good student. So that's the setup.
Right.
this is how bad a student I was. I signed up for a Russian class, and it took, thinking it was Spanish, it took me 3 classes before I realized I don't think this is Spanish. So that's like a setup joke. Right. So then for me, it's about like treading water, you know? And each joke is a paddle to keep your head above water. Sometimes the most interesting part of a story is letting your lips get right to the point where you're about to go under, and then treading water and getting you back up. I don't know why I always associate things with water. But then there's hacky jokes inside there. Like my teacher, who was hot as shit, he definitely worked out. Like, but I stopped saying that part because I didn't like that people laughed at it, because this is, now we're getting very meta. I didn't like when Key and Peele dressed up as gay guys, and that was the joke. Because I go, there are guys that's their lifestyle. And because that's their lifestyle, that's not funny. That's them. That's who they are. Let them be them and don't laugh at them. And I didn't like that I was saying, he definitely worked out, and everyone laughed like, oh my God, he was gay. Right. I didn't like that. So
that felt hacky to you.
It felt hacky, and it felt demeaning to someone who might be gay, in my opinion. Right. And yeah, it's just a stupid freaking joke, but then it started to rub me the wrong way. And so, and I had a nice little chunk that went with it, but anyway.
Well, I'm actually really fascinated in the whole storytelling element. And you told a story on your podcast once about how you had I believe it was a younger comedian that came in and told you a story, and then you kind of said, okay, I'm going to tell this story back to you. I'm fascinated in that because, number one, you were coaching him basically. Yeah. But I have so many questions about the art of storytelling. First off, it's something that in my world, I only really know a couple of people that I consider really great storytellers. And to me, it's a superpower to be able to tell a story impeccably and to choose your words. And you mentioned this before, the economy of words. That is something that I'm, especially now doing this podcast, I'm trying to figure this out. I have a lot of stories, but I get too wordy. I step on myself. And so I'm fascinated in what is your preparation?
This is my favorite part of talking ever, is talking about stories.
Well, this is what excites me. Yeah. Like, how do you figure out, and I'm interested to know what your preparation is like when you come up with this idea of the machine. And I also want to talk about the fact, because in a lot of ways, that's where the similarity ends between my world and yours. Because when you have your machine, there comes a time where that expires. You can't tell that story anymore. Am I correct about that?
You'd think so.
But
I ran into the blessing and problem is if you are known so much for one thing, sometimes people really hang their hat and tell their friends, you got to see this guy. He tells this great story. We're going to go see him live. And so when you don't tell it, and I've only not told it once. I've only not told it twice. One time I was so drunk on stage, I just was like, I'm not telling that story, and I walked off. Right. And then that's an interesting story in and of itself. But when you don't tell a story, I did it one time in Columbus. I was like, guys, I've been telling it for like 4 years. I was doing 3 shows in a night. I was like, I can't tell it. I got off stage. Dave Stroop came back, and he's like, we have some customers out front that are a little upset. And I went out, and there was like 24 people. And they're like, dude, we drove 3 hours to come hear you do stand-up. It was a great show, but I promised all of them that you'd tell the machine story, and you didn't tell it. And I was like, yeah, I know it's late. And they're like, no, we understand it's late for us. These are the only tickets we could get, but would kill you if we bought you a shot and a drink and you told us a story. And I sat in the bar and I told the fucking machine story to them.
Wow. Now, what is that like as a storyteller? Like, you have to do something in your head so that you don't just feel like you're telling a story that everybody knows. Do you think to yourself, okay, there's at least a couple people here that haven't heard it, so this is who I'm telling it to?
I always try to find the person, and I'm always shocked at it. I always look for an older person or a black woman or someone that I feel like is not my demographic. Right. And every time I'm like, but ma'am, have you heard this story? And she's like, that's the only reason I'm here. And you're like, right. All right. Right. Facebook's reach is so wide that you'd be shocked who found you through that. And then your goal is to do an hour's worth of material leading up to that, or hour plus, so that people are so entertained by you that they're like, that's my guy. I'm going to come back every time. Right. But yeah, with the machine story, I'm still telling it. I mean, this sounds really weird. I told it on my hour special for the fans. Like I did an hour special for Netflix.
Right.
Shot my special, closed it, thank you, good night, standing ovation, and they're chanting The Machine.
Right.
And I walked back out. They went nuts. I was like, when I was 22 years old, I got involved with the Russian Mafia. This is not going on my special.
Right.
And they go fucking crazy. They sit down, and they're like, here we go.
Okay.
But it's a hit, you know, it's like your hit. It's like my mom went and saw Bob Dylan once and he didn't play any of his hits and she'll never forget it. Like it broke her heart, right? So it's like the hit song.
Well, that's what I was wondering about, because what I thought was a difference between what we do is when I come up with those songs, that's my ticket. I get to do that for the rest of my life. I get to do that night after night for the rest of my life, and nobody's going to say, God, you know, I've heard that one. But in your world, I thought that there would come a point where where you can't do that.
Well, it's like I've been known for a guy who tells the hits, I guess.
Right.
And I feel like people now there's like 5 stories people want to hear.
Right.
So like I want to do a theater tour where I just do the hits and go, these are all the stories you want to hear.
Right.
And just, I mean, I think I could do that, but the problem is, it's very hard to get passionate about a story that you know already works.
Right.
And like sometimes in the Machine story, I'll fuck up the story because I'll be so somewhere else in my head. I'll be somewhere else, like going. I wonder if early in this act, I wonder if I could slide that word for this. And I'm talking.
Right.
And my wife one time saw me in San Francisco, and she goes, listen, if you're not going to be into telling the story, don't tell it.
Huh.
And I was like, was I not into it? She goes, you were somewhere else.
Wow.
So now the key for me is, the trick is to get into the story, to be into the story and be like involved in the story. And sometimes in order to do that, I have to play with the story and make it a little different so that I get lost or confused and have to figure things out.
You have to stay alert.
Stay alert.
Right.
But yeah, that's the...
Do you find that it's muscle memory? I mean, could you literally just go into cruise control and tell that story and be thinking about your grocery list or whatever?
Yes.
See, that's scary. That's really scary. That's where you gotta...
I could do that with my act, though.
Right.
Like, once you get, like... That's the key. I found out, like, when I did my hour special, I was like, I'm really good at it when I'm in the moment. And the key now for me is to be in the moment. It's really easy to be in the moment when you're writing material.
Right.
Because you're all over the place trying to figure out the bit.
Right.
And you're trying to write in the moment. Then it's super easy to be in the moment. I think that's why I like that stand-up the best. When you're doing an act, it's a little bit exhausting. Like, weird thoughts go through your brain. Like, for my last special... There was a point where I would be like, something about my wife can't give a hand job, and then all I would think was, I know that I have 55 more minutes left. I got to a point where I would say, my wife says, ladies, when in doubt, spread them out, and I knew I have 28 more minutes left. Like, it's a weird thing where your brain goes, I have 28 more minutes left, and then when you start your last bit of that thing, you're like, oh, we're done.
Right.
I've heard guys have anxiety attacks. Some guys had to quit doing stand-up because they get anxiety attacks about the idea of having to talk for an hour.
Right.
I don't get those. When you have a full hour that works. The key is to do it just enough where you figure it out, you get it right, and then you shoot your special, and then you never touch it again. But the key for me is to just, what I'm doing this weekend in San Antonio is I'm doing a whole new hour. I'm doing a brand new hour every show. Every show will be a brand new hour with chunks that work, but mostly because I love that. I love that so much. I love when you get a joke that works and then it doesn't work all of a sudden. You're like, wait, what the fuck?
Right,
I love when you have a joke that kind of has worked in the past. You go to put it in your new hour and you get to play with it and really figure it out and go, oh... This is where it goes.
Well, I was going to ask you. You mentioned your when does your special come out?
I don't know. I think August, maybe.
Awesome. I'm dying to know what is the preparation for that like. When I hear you guys talking about, I was writing this joke. I don't even know what is. I know what the act of writing a song is like, but what is it like writing a joke? Are you sitting there with a pad? Are you?
Yeah, like a script. Is it like written like that?
I don't understand that process.
No. So. For me, I heard a quote from in college. I was with Johnny Knoxville, oddly enough, partying one night in college. He was Johnny Knoxville then, but he wasn't like famous at all. This is 1997 probably, 96. And I don't remember the art. It's an Irish female writer. I thought it was a female writer. It might be a male writer. And the quote was, writing is just what I do while I wait for inspiration, or something to that effect. I don't do that. I don't sit and write. I don't sit with a piece of paper, and it's just because it's tedious for me, and I never will look at it. And it does draw up ideas, but they're ideas that are not super inspired. For me, a lot of it is, for me, I can write really well when I'm a group of people and I'm having beers and we're being natural.
Right.
Or like on the new podcast that we're doing where it's just me, talk about something and then I find something silly. A lot of it happens when I mishear things. And then once you mishear it, you write backwards from there.
Right.
And then a lot is taking a story that you think will work and then doing it on stage and recognizing where the fast parts are and realizing you have to slow it down.
Right.
But like Isla is a big inspiration for me, my youngest daughter, because she's so different that she says things that you just come out of left field. Last night she pulled Leanne aside. Leanne told me this in bed. She pulled Leanne aside because I'm talking about getting a new car. She said, Mom, we need to have a real serious conversation with Dad. And my wife's like, what? And she was like, we can't let him get a car that isn't electric. And she was like, oh, your dad's never buying an electric car, Isla. She goes, no, we need to talk to him about that, and we need to set up boundaries for him if he decides not to get an electric car. And my wife's like, oh, you're going head-to-head with the monster. Like, you're not going to... And so something like that plants a seed where I go, okay, now, say I'm working on a different chunk. I know I have this story about Isla, about the electric car that slides in. This is a perfect example. Perfect example makes it a lot easier. One night, Isla asked me about time travel, and I was caught off guard. I had been partying with my friends in the man cave, and Leanne's like, "You need to come in, talk to Isla." She's really worked up, and I was a little high. I was a little buzzed. Everyone's still partying, and I walk in. I'm like, "You okay?" And she's like, "Shut the door." So I shut the door, I go up to her bed, it's in a bunk bed, and just the way she did it is funnier. I had to lose it, but she just flips on her side. She goes, "Do you believe in time travel?" And I'm like, it caught me off guard, and I'm like, by the way, I really believe in time travel.
Right.
And I'm like, yeah, why? And she goes, would it be possible for me to travel back from the future to tell myself a secret? And I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, that's how it starts. Yes, 100%. I go, why? And she goes, that's all I need to know. And just pops back on her back and just starts to go to bed. And I go, wait, what the fuck's the rest of the story? What happens in the future?
Right.
Do I get a sitcom? Like, so I had that chunk, and it never worked on stage. It was just too short. There wasn't enough meat to it.
Right.
Then one night, I ate an edible, and I got really high, and I thought I was dying, and I was laying in bed, and Isla came into my room. She had a bad dream.
Right.
And then randomly, like a few months later, Isla starts keeping her deodorant in the refrigerator. And Leanne's like, what the fuck? And then we watch her, and what she does is she takes it out of the refrigerator, takes the top off, swipes her finger across it, and rubs it above her lip, right? Cap on, in the door, shuts it. And I'm like, what the fuck is that? She's like, mind your own business. So now all those stories were all one-offs, right? Like one-offs that just kind of fell flat. They were like, well, that is weird. And then you'd move to the next subject. They're like, wait, what's going on?
Right.
So then one night in Calgary, I string them all together into a bit, and it gets an applause break.
Wow.
And so it starts with, also, and this could have been a standalone bit in my opinion. I went to Isla's softball practice. They're doing practice without a ball because it's LA and they don't want to introduce failure. And Isla's in center field, and the coach is like, all right, fly ball to Isla, bases loaded, and goes, ksh. And Isla immediately just turns around and starts running like it went over her head. There's no ball, and everyone's fucking laughing hysterically.
Right.
So we got all these chunks. So one night, I start off with, my daughters are weird as shit.
Right.
My one daughter keeps her deodorant in the refrigerator, tell that chunk. And then I think, you can't, I say you can't even smoke weed around these kids. I think I'm going somewhere else, and then I realize, I got the story of when I was too high, she came in to talk to me. And I start that story, and I realize in the middle of this is all happening in Calgary at one moment. I realize if I now tell the time travel, like if she walked into my room and I'm high and she tells the time travel story, that's great. I stop the time travel story in the middle. No. I start the time travel story and then I tell the softball story. At the end of the softball story, describing the brain of this child, I finish the time travel story. And at the end of the time travel story, this is all happening in real moments. I am I realize the punchline of the joke, and that is, now I'm worried that there's a 30-year-old version of my daughter in the bedroom going, what did he say? And she and she goes, I told you I was real. Listen, I came back from the future. Dad's going to die. He's had too much marijuana. We need to save his life.
Oh, my God.
And she's like, first, I need you to get your deodorant and put it in the refrigerator. And it gets an applause break. And I go, that's it. And there's no better feeling.
And you did all of this on stage, in the moment, on the fly.
And so confused, not recording it, so confused as I'm doing it, knowing I'm losing it. I'm losing it in the ethos, like in the ether. I'm losing it because I haven't recorded it and I don't remember the exact way I said it. And I get off stage and I get an applause break. That's very rare for me.
Right.
Is to get an applause break in the middle of my act.
Right.
And I sit back in the green room and this kid who I was working with, who'd been doing it 4 years, comes back and he goes, that is an amazing chunk. He goes, how long have you been working on it? I go, it just came out.
Wow.
And then I was like, why did it get an applause break? He goes, it got an applause break because they knew it was over.
Huh.
And I was like, oh, that was an eye-opener. Because I had always known in storytelling, you need to let them know it's over.
Right.
A story, they need to know a story's over.
Right.
Like it's a weird sensibility. So like the one joke where I say, when in doubt, spread them out. Right. That's a story about ziplining with my wife and my kids. But once you say that, there's a really nice feeling in knowing he's not talking about that anymore. We're moving forward.
Right.
There's when you do that properly, it gets an applause break.
Yeah, they need to know when it's time to applaud.
And sometimes it takes 4 years to finish that.
Right.
So like, and my key to that, and I stand by this, is that if you plant a sapling early enough in a story, you can harvest it at the end of the story.
Right.
So in the Ralph Sampson story, or in the Machine story is a perfect example. In the Machine story, there's a moment where, if you haven't heard the story, I apologize that I'm chopping it all up for you, but the key is I end up partying with the mafia. There's a moment where we're on a train and we rob the bar cart and we come back to our room and a teacher approaches me and says, and starts yelling at me, "You're done. How dare you? How dare you?"
Right.
And the mafia guy, Igor, who I was with, took a sip of vodka and spit vodka in her eyes. And then he said to me, "Fuck that bitch. This is Russia."
Right.
We said to her, "No one talks to the machine like that." Shut the door in her face and goes, "Fuck that bitch. This is Russia."
Right.
Now, the end of the story, in my whole opinion, and spoiler alert, if you want to hear the story, stop listening now. But the end of the story, in my opinion, was, because this is true, when I went to the cop at the very end of the story, where it looks like I'm going to be arrested, my class has been robbed, the train has been robbed, I've just been ratted out, I get pulled up to the cop, and I think he's going to say, "You're going to jail with me," and he says, "So I understand you're the machine." That was the end of the story, and that's all he said. That is how, and I went, "Are you serious?" He's like, "Yeah, tonight you party with us." That was the end of the story. That was the end of the story. One night in Columbus, oddly enough, this all happens in Columbus, but this is like years after that, I realize, and I've always realized, I go, "So I understand you're the machine." It never got the ending. I never got the closure I needed. People are like, "And then what happened?"
Right.
And you're like, "And then nothing." And then I just went home.
Oh, and that's the worst, to just have it end like that.
Yeah, and they're like, "Wait, did you party with him?" That's what they always ask. "Did you party with him?" And we ended up partying with him later, but not that night because I was scared, and no one wants to hear that. I was scared, and I stayed in a hotel room, and I didn't answer my phone, and he called all night. No one. That doesn't end the story. And he's like, and then that night I realized if I said to the cop, "Am I in trouble?" And the cop leans forwards, and then I love little tidbits. He leans forward so close I can smell his morning cigarette, and he says to me, "No, fuck that bitch. This is Russia."
Right.
Then they know it's over. They know it's over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There it is, right there. Yeah.
It's the best when you know a story's over. I have the story about, and this is the key. So I've got the ending of the story. I don't have the beginning of the story. So the story about riding motorcycles in Russia is basically the theme of it is, I rode motorcycles, and they say if you ride motorcycles drunk, you're going to die, right? That's basically the stats.
Right.
80% fatalities happen because of rider inebriation.
Right. Never
did it. And then I'm in Vietnam, and I'm drunk, and we're in the middle of nowhere, and there's a motorcycle, and I'm like, fuck it, I gotta see how much fun this is, right?
Right.
So that's the story. My wife calls in the middle. She shames me. How dare you do this? You have daughters. I go back. I'm really chopping this up for you because by the way, this whole chunk I haven't really figured out.
Right.
I know it. I know it because it happened, but I need to change parts of it.
So this is something you're working on right now?
This is something I'm working on right now.
Awesome.
But I know the end works.
Got it.
End works. The end gets an applause break, but it's so disjointed from this story I'm about to tell you that so I ride motorcycles. In the middle of riding motorcycles, Rogan calls me. He's like, what are you doing? I was like, I'm high as fuck. I'm drunk as shit. I'm racing motorcycles through rice paddies in Vietnam.
Right.
He's like, he's like, you're the fucking machine. Like,
right.
He's like, dude, this is what life's about. You need to keep doing this shit. Fuck Travel Channel. Fuck the money. These life experiences. If you don't bring it back and talk about this on stage, you have wasted your fucking life.
Right.
And I'm like, right. Then I keep doing it. I almost wreck. My heart's up. I'm really fucking into it now. And my wife calls and she's like, you're a fucking idiot. You're a father. Go back. Go to sleep. Sleep it off. Come home. Be safe. Fuck you. How dare you?
Right.
So I go back to the hotel, this farm stay we're at. I go to bed. I feel guilty. And in the middle of the night, my fixer, his name was TT, comes in with a joint. He's smoking a joint. And he's like, and I'm like, and he comes in, sits on my bed. I take a hit. He takes a hit. And I was like, he's like, what's the matter? I was like, I just feel irresponsible. I feel stupid. Like, what am I doing? Like, I really could have gotten hurt today.
Right.
I'm not even great on motorcycles, and I'm drunk as fuck, racing them through rice paddies. He's like, I know what you need. And he goes out, and he comes back in, and he gives me a puppy.
Jesus.
I swear to God. He gives me like an 8-week-old puppy. And he goes, cuddle with this little guy tonight. I think he'll cheer you up. And it turned me around because a puppy is just so vulnerable. And it was snuggled right in between my neck. And I just played with him. And he didn't move. And it was perfect. And I'm high. And I go to sleep. And I wake up with this puppy playing with me in the morning. Just, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm back. I go out to the bus because we're going to Tokyo the next day. And they're like, wow, you're in a good mood. And I go, I got a fucking puppy last night. And everyone, I travel with 11 people. They're like, wait, we all got puppies. I go, wait, you all got puppies? And Paul, my buddy, goes, yeah, apparently it got really cold last night. And that litter of puppies wasn't going to stay warm enough by the fire.
They had to come inside.
TT came in and gave us each puppies. And I was like, oh my God, except for one girl, right? This girl who was our supervising producer, we'll just call her KH, okay? She stands up and goes, I didn't get a puppy. And we're like, you didn't? And she's like, no, I was too busy getting fucked. Oh. And we're like, by the way, no one ever got laid on our crew. And we're like, wait, hold on 1 second. Because we were the only ones at the farm stay. So I go, hold on. Did you have sex with anyone on our crew? And she goes, no. And we're like, well, you didn't have sex with John, the owner of the farm stay, because his wife was there. Right. She was like, no, his buddy who was fixing the fire for us. That's who I fucked. And I was like, you mean his 15-year-old son?
Oh,
and
shit.
All of a sudden, Paul stands up and goes, turns out we all got puppies. It's just such a great ending to a story, but it's disjointed from the beginning of the story. Right. So I got to find a way to take that moment, that hilarious, I mean, in real life, when he said that, we laughed, crying all the way from at the airport from where we were in Dong Hoi.
Right.
To all, like, we were crying, laughing. And she was like, he wasn't 15. We're like, he was fucking 15. It was one of the greatest moments.
Oh, my God.
But the key is, now I got the harvest. I've got to find the sapling to plant early.
Right. So does that consume you? Like, are you thinking about that all the time during your day now? How often do you work on that? Or do you wait till stage to work on it?
I wait till stage a little bit. I think about it. Like on the road, I'll think about it. I try, like I'm so busy during the week that I don't think much about stand-up. I let stand-up happen more to me, meaning like the gun thing we're talking about.
Yeah.
Like I actively look for things to get involved in so that I can hopefully come up with a bit.
Right.
Or like I said this the other day, I misheard someone say something on the plane, and then I started laughing at it, and so then I write that down and I go, that's an interesting mishear.
Right.
Like
right.
I mishear things a lot.
Right.
And they make me laugh, and I go, shit, you didn't mean to say that. And then I go, oh, you didn't say that. So you don't know what I just thought.
Right.
I thought
right.
your thought, but you missaid it.
Right.
So
do you keep a notebook?
I have a notebook. I put things on my phone. I just put something on yesterday. Mostly it's tour date.
So tell me how that works. You put something in your phone yesterday. You overheard something. You misheard something. Whatever it would be. Do you literally leave that until you get on stage and you go, oh, that's the part that confuses me, because it seems to me like there has to be more preparation than that.
No,
really?
See, I think your notebooks, for me, my notebook's in my head,
right?
And then you write stuff down to trigger it, so you read it every now and then and go, like, these are the 2 things I wrote down. That's about as flashy as an all-girls slam dunk contest, because I saw an all-girls slam dunk contest,
right?
And it's just them dunking. It's that
right.
There's no moves. It's just, hey, I can dunk.
Right.
Like, oh, I can dunk also.
Right.
And I was like, wow, that's really unimpressive. And then the other thing I heard was, I thought someone said on the plane, that's like the pot calling the kettle half black. And I was like, "That what?" And then I was like, "Oh, never mind. Okay, I got
right.
that." And then I got into a fight with my wife. And then I wrote Russian Uber driver. I got into a fight with my wife at the airport, and it wasn't bad, but it definitely, if you were watching us, you're like, they're arguing, and it was probably my fault. I definitely was drunk, but it wasn't like we weren't screaming at each other.
Right.
I was just like, God damn it, Leanne. No, listen. It was like that kind of talking, right? And then I have a 65-year-old Russian Uber driver,
right?
Who, when we get out of the airport, he goes, you shouldn't fight with your wife. I went, excuse me? He goes, you need to listen to her. And I go, hold on, excuse me? He's like, you shouldn't fight with your wife, especially in public. Like, you shouldn't do that. You shouldn't. And all I did was bite my tongue, because I wanted to say, hey, man, I didn't have the luxury of beating her when she was younger, right. So that she didn't get to state her real opinions in public.
Right.
Like, it must be nice to know your wife is afraid of you because you hit her a bunch
right.
when you got drunk, and she didn't have a fucking voice in your relationship, and don't talk to me like that. But like, so I just wrote Russian Uber driver.
Right.
And then one day what will happen is something will happen that'll parallel to that, and that'll trigger me to go Russian Uber driver.
Got it. Got it. And you mentioned, you've told 2 stories now where one story you told where you and another comedian got up and you started just riffing with each other, and it was one of the most magical things that you had ever experienced, and it was, and then you were upset because your wife had not videotaped it. And then you just mentioned the one in Calgary. Are you now recording everything? Please tell me you record every single one of your shows now, because it's easy to do.
I record every show. It's not easy to do. That's the problem.
Huh.
It's easy to voice record them. But
audio record it, right?
Sometimes you get up and then, like in Calgary, the case was I got up and I turned it on and the batteries were dead. And I was like, oh, shit. I must have left the batteries on last night.
Right.
In D.C., that was before I was recording, when I wasn't selling out every show, it was very easy to record because you just find a table and put a camera in the back.
Right.
Now I cannot find a camera. I can't find a place to put a camera.
Right.
And
but what about at least the audio portion of it?
I record every audio of a show, but like this week I had a great joke. I know Halston heard me say it, but I had a great joke this week about animal rights, less about animal rights and more about progress made by animals, meaning that women are striving for all this progress with the Me Too movement, but dogs have leapfrogged them without a word. Like, dogs have gone from not being able to ride on planes to Rosa parking themselves on planes in first class with not a sign, not a fucking sit-in,
right.
Nothing. They didn't do a thing. And it was like all about that. And the first night I told it murdered. Wow. No audio recording. I just no batteries. And then every night after, I recorded it, but man, it sucked every fucking night after.
Wow.
Yeah, it was because the first time I did it, I somehow made a plausible connection with female rights and dog rights, meaning women, which was the misdirect was women should act more like dogs. And every woman was like, what the fuck? And it was so ridiculous that all the guys started laughing and all the women started going, what did you just say?
Right.
And then I was like, and then I fixed it and corrected it. And so then, you know, like I remember like a great misdirect one time I did on Bob and Tom, which Christy Lee got really upset with, was I said, I knocked the wind out of my wife one time. And so people immediately like, what did you say? Clearly I've never hit my wife. I was never going to hit my wife.
Right.
But she was like, we do not talk about that kind of stuff on air. And I said, why not? She goes, about you beat up your wife. I said, I never said that. I said I knocked the wind out of my wife. We were on a jet ski.
Right.
She fell off a jet ski because I was an idiot and the wind got knocked out of her. I knocked the wind out of her because I was being an idiot. And then I was literally like, and I'm friends with Christy now, but I was like, do you really think I was going to come up here and go, sometimes I beat my wife? Like, did you really think I was going to say that?
Right, but you also know that by saying that, you are implying that, and that's what the joke is.
That's the implication is what gets people to go, what? And now you're listening.
Right.
And like, I don't do it quite as much now, those misdirects, but every now and then they're good to it's good to prove, like I always say to audiences sometimes, like I'll go, I'm smarter than you when it comes to comedy. Like I know more about what you find funny than you know what you find funny.
Right.
And they're always like, no, you don't. Like they always go, like I'll have an idea, I'll have horrible ideas sometimes on stage, like just horrible ideas. And then it'll make me giggle because I got an awful sense of humor. And then they'll be like, say it. And I'm like, trust me, no guys, you do not want to trust me when I say I know your sense of humor better than you know yours.
Right.
And then they're like, just say it. And you're like, no, trust me. Like if I could figure out the right way to say, the idea is too good right now for me.
Right.
But yeah.
You know, I something that I find interesting about the fact, first off, just by watching a lot of your podcasts, you hang out with a lot of other comics. I mean, that just seems to be your world. And obviously, I think that seems like that's part of the creative process, just always being at that level. But one of the things I notice is that you guys, when you're hanging out with comics and having conversations, whether it's on a podcast or whatever, you're at a different level than even me as an audience member is. It seems like your comedy is at a different level where there's a lot of things where you guys you even say half of a word and the other guy goes, I know where you're going with that, and that's funny, and I like that. You can't do that when you're on stage with an audience. Do you find that your sense of comedy is different around your friends and the people that you hang out with? And then I don't want to say dumb it down, but refocus it for the average person?
Not entirely. There are things I find funny that like I don't get I'm never going to get offended. So there are things I find funny that I could share with my comic friends, and they would love.
Right. You
can never tell it on stage.
Right.
Like I did that on a podcast one time. And a lot of people got offended. But I was with a bunch of comics, and I told them a joke I thought was very funny. And a lot of people got offended. A lot of people actually emailed me directly and DM'd me on Twitter, and they're like, dude, I've been a fan. I didn't know you felt that way.
Wow.
And I was like, it's a joke. It's a joke, but I'm with comics, and it's a podcast, and we're drunk. And then so in my head, I was like, there is something. I made my friends laugh, right?
Right.
And I know that it counts for something. And I tried it then again the next week, and I tried to rework it, but the premise is just too. It just is too. The premise is why I could never marry a black chick.
Right.
Okay. Immediately, if you're a black woman, you go, well, what did I do? Like you lose every black woman.
Right.
And then the punchline, you lose every black person.
Right.
Like it was like in the punchline. By the way, it is something I think that is a underlying feeling with the whole premise. I won't tell you the whole thing because even as little as you know, as offended as little as you know, and it's, by the way, it's not even racist. It's just as little as you know, even the setup and punch is worse. I think you've heard it.
Oh yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, and so I tried it on stage because it did make my friends laugh, and I do think that something that is a connective tissue. And this black, and it was in DC, and this black woman came out at the meet and greet, and she said, "I just want you to know, I had a great time at your show, but that one joke is really fucked up."
Wow.
And I was like, all right. And I thought to myself, all right, number one, if I am going to workshop that joke, I'm going to do it in places where it doesn't count.
Right.
And I'm going to workshop it there. I'm not going to do it on the road. And then I started going, is that something I care to talk about? Is that something I care to approach in today's society, where you could lose jobs and you could, not that I can lose my job, but like you could lose people that theoretically like what you do. Is that the lane you want to be in? Do you want to be that guy? Personally, I don't really give a shit about race. Like, I just don't care. The same way we're talking about guns.
Right.
I don't really have an opinion.
Right.
I don't see, I guess I probably see color, but like, I don't see it for the most part. Like, I think it's brought up a lot in culture, but like, it's my favorite things to watch are hip hop videos, and not just hip hop videos, any videos on hip hop and anything about black culture. I love, like, that's what it interests me, you know?
Right.
So then part of me is like, well, then let's not even go there. Or if we're going to go there, let's figure out that we really want to go there.
Right.
But
that's also part of what you do is you choose things that are going to make people uncomfortable, at least at first, right? I mean, isn't that kind of the goal, to get people a little off kilter? Sometimes. I don't think it always is that. I think there's a way to do it. You know, like Brian Regan doesn't get anyone off kilter. And I find myself leaning more towards Brian Regan than towards Doug Stanhope. Okay.
So like Stanhope, his whole thing is, I want you on edge. I want you off kilter. I want to say the thing that you did not expect me to say, and I want to give you the punchline that you really didn't expect coming. Jim Jeffries does that. Anthony Jeselnik, Segura to an extent does that. And then guys like Rogan don't necessarily say, like, they're more in the middle line. They want to figure out the math of it. Bill Burr, although he's going in trouble for a joke right now, or not in trouble. Bill would never think he's in trouble, but like, he likes to say stuff that, I mean, he's talked about it on TV, but he has a joke where the opening line is, "I don't support the troops."
Right.
And I'm tired of giving it up for the troops. That's his joke.
Right.
And it's offended a lot of people. The punchline is sound.
Right.
Trust me when I tell you, it is sound. And I won't do it because that's his joke.
Right.
If you want to hear him do it, you go see him live, but it is sound.
Yeah.
And he's not dumbing it down for anybody.
So, just kind of staying on the subject of you and your comic friends, the comedy world has a reputation of there being a lot of depression. And I wanted to get your take on that, because I've been talking a lot about that in my world, and it just interests me. Obviously, there's a lot of irony to that, but you must see a lot of that. I mean, I even noticed that when I watch you talking with other comics on your podcast, for lack of a better way to say it, there seems like there's a lot of underlying anger, and I don't know if that's accurate. I don't know if I'm reading that wrong.
No, you're right. First of all, there's a lot of depression in comedy, myself included. I definitely deal with it. I always say I'm like depression light, because I don't have crippling depression,
right?
But I definitely, if left to my vices and all my vices, I can end up in a hotel room all day long and just do my show.
Right.
Like, I can definitely not leave. And I guess that is part of depression, you know, is like, then, like, it's been a problem as of late, meaning these last few months,
right?
That I've been at home a lot, and I've just been laying in bed a lot and not doing stuff and not being active. And I just did a podcast this morning with this marathon podcast, where I've been saying that for me, working out it gets rid of my depression.
Right.
If I run, then I go, I'm good. Let's get our day through. Or having a busy day.
Right.
There's no depression in that day. It's always up. It's always like we're doing stuff. But there's a guy that was online, a comedian online, that was like, who posted something about I'm going through depression and I'm just going through it alone, and I guess that's how this happens. And then in the comedy community, I know a lot of us reached out to him personally, was like, yo, let me get you on the road with me for a weekend. Let me get you out of this. Let me tell you I love you, or this and that.
Right.
I think our depression is also connected to drugs and alcohol, is probably the main. I know that's my on-ramp to depression.
Sure.
Is my exit ramp is when I party too hard.
Is there still a lot of drugs in that world?
Yeah.
See, that's just that's incredible to me, and I guess it makes sense. It just seems like it's the world that you're in, but how do you sustain that? You're a big drinker, no secrets about that, and we've talked about that. And I mean, at some point you're gonna, at some point it's gonna catch up with you. You know that.
It's catching up.
Sure,
it's definitely catching up. It's definitely catching up. I've lost the place. Yeah, it's catching up.
See, in my world, people still imagine, backstage at rock shows, drugs, drinking and stuff. You'd be so bored at what it was really like backstage. Now it's like, vegan food and it's just not.
Juices.
It's not that anymore. I see actually very little drug use in my world anymore, which I'm so happy about.
Yeah.
Not the case in your world.
No. Like if you get off stage at the store, I would be shocked. I mean, when you go to the store, and I'm not blaming the store about this. This is us that ask for it. The store has no connection to this, but we ask for this. There is usually a gift bag from a dispensary that is like, maybe $1,000 worth of weed.
Right.
Every night you get one. There's to the point where I have so much marijuana I could open a dispensary.
Well, and for the record, I don't really consider that drugs. I'm talking hard drugs.
I don't consider that drugs either. Pills are a big one in our community.
And that goes back to the depression part of this, right?
Yeah, a lot of Xanax, Vicodin, a lot of pain pills.
That's the scary stuff, too.
Yeah, a lot of people just going like, oh, just take half a Vicodin with that. And booze is the big one.
Right.
Coke is around. Coke is I know I've been in those rooms. So, once you do Coke, people think it's okay to talk about Coke with you or bring it out in front of you.
Right.
If you've done it, but if you've never done Coke with people, then you'd never know what's going on. But when you've done it, you definitely know what's going on.
Right.
And so I know Coke's still a big one. Definitely, Adderall is like everyone's taking Adderall.
Jesus.
With few booze, Adderall, but for me my big thing's booze, and I and weed, I guess technically, but I haven't smoked weed in a long time because I was training for that marathon. But I wish I could get to a place. I was thinking this morning, pulling off of my street onto Riverside, and I thought, I feel really good today, and I didn't drink last night.
Right.
Like, I feel really good. Yesterday, I did not feel good, and I had gotten really drunk the night before, like really drunk the night before, the day before. It started in Hawaii and lasted until 5 a.m. when I'm still up watching TV and Googling shit.
Right.
I wish that I could get to a place where I could just go, no booze for me this weekend. Here's where it's problematic. Tito's is now sponsoring my shows in an interesting way. Some of them. They are giving $1 to St. Jude's Foundation for every Tito's drink sold.
Yes.
So
you're actually it's a cause for you.
Yeah.
But that's the interesting, because you really don't drink on stage. It's not your thing. I mean, sometimes you'll have a beer on stage.
Did drink on stage in Sacramento because I was not preparing for anything,
right?
And I wanted to be loose and I wanted to have fun.
But it's not part of your bit.
No.
But you are known for being a drinker. That is part of what people are attracted. Everyone wants to have a drink with Bert.
Oh yeah.
Everyone wants to buy Bert a drink.
Yeah.
Which is kind of strange because it isn't part of your act. I guess it's just because people just know that about you. You're a partier. You're known as a partier.
It's I've had people say stuff like this has been my life goal is to have a drink with you, or like this is a dream come true.
Right.
And then I've not had drinks with people and they've gotten really upset.
Right.
Like been like dude, please, like they'll buy me shots. I don't really do shots anymore.
Right.
They'll buy me a shot and be like, hey man, I got us a shot. Please do a shot with me. And I'm like,
have 10 hours to be here.
Yeah.
Right.
And
right.
so part of you is like, I don't want to let people down, but at the same time, it's like now I tell them like, look, I drink on my pace. Like I'll drink for me.
Right.
Like if I want to have a drink, I'll have a drink, but I'm not going to just start loading up. Because I did do that for a while, where I'd be like, you want to do a shot with me? Let's do a shot. Wham.
Right.
Want to do a shot with me? Let's do a shot. Wham. And I would do an ungodly amount of shots.
Wow.
But today I was thinking, I was like, it's, that not to like use a phrase and then attach myself to the phrase, and then because I did that, connect it to like I need to go into recovery or I have a problem. But there's a phrase I've heard people use where they go, it just stopped working for me. Like it wasn't making life easy.
Yeah.
And this morning I was like, I think like whatever the way I'm doing this is not working for me.
Huh, yeah.
I used to be able to get up in the morning and get on a plane and drink on the plane and land and drink at night and then get up the next day and just bounce back. And I am not there anymore. I am like bounce back. You saw me last night when I was just in a fucking shit mood, and I was like, yeah, I can't do the solo podcast. I just can't. I'm not there. I'm in a bad mood, and I'm not in a bad mood because I'm upset at anything. I'm in a bad mood because I partied so hard the day before that my vision's still off.
Right.
And
right.
I'm like, oh.
Hey, part of that's just age, dude. I reached a point when I was still drinking where my hangovers lasted 5 fucking days.
Yeah.
It's the worst.
And at that point, I found that I was spending most of my time managing disappointments. I was canceling everything. I was trying to, I spent most of my energy that I should have been spending writing songs. I was trying to figure out the next excuse as to why I had to cancel this session or why I wasn't going to be able to show up at this event or something. At that point, I was just like, this is fucking stupid.
Yeah, it stopped working for you for sure.
And that's just an age thing,
My days are spent managing a nap. Like I go, like yesterday I said, I got up, I worked, I don't know what I did yesterday. I can't remember.
10 a.m. podcast.
I did
and
a
then
10
you're
a.m.
like 10 a.m. podcast, and we had one scheduled after that, and you're like, I got to take a nap after the first one.
Yeah.
And then, yeah.
Right, but you are going hard, man. I mean, I think that has as much to do with the fact that you are a busy fucking guy as it does the fact that you party hard.
Yeah, and I don't miss anything. I don't really miss anything. Like I don't reschedule stuff. I do work pretty aggressively. Like our cable was down. There was this young black kid. I don't know why I had to tell you he was black. Only because I thought there would be a sense of what white privilege was in his view.
Right.
But he was coming to work in our internet, and our internet's in our closet. So I opened the door. I said, "You cool with dogs?" He's like, "Yeah." And then I walked him back to our internet, and I put him in the closet to fix our internet, and then I got back in bed to take a nap. And then he got up and he walked in and he saw me sleeping, and he had to wake me up.
That's fantastic.
And it was like it's like 2:00 in the 2:30 in the afternoon.
It's not a good look.
And he's just looking at this older white guy sleeping, and he's working his ass off putting in cable lines, and then he's like, "Hey man, I need to talk to your wife. Like, I need to talk to someone. Can I use this bathroom in here?" I was like, "Yeah." And in my head, I wanted to be like, "Don't wake me up next time. Just use it."
Right.
But and then another time in the day, he came into my bedroom, and I'm on a conference call, and I'm just laying in bed on a conference call, and he must have just been like, "So this is what being white's like."
Right.
You're doing business in your pajamas with your dogs in bed with you, just sleeping.
Right.
And I actually felt guilty. Like I was like, I'm not a good representation of my race right now.
Jeez.
Yeah, but I still push myself to work, and still on the road. And this is where it gets problematic too, is like, I'm flying in to go do the San Antonio date. I don't let them cancel radio, even though shows are sold out. I'm going in and do radio at 6 a.m. Right. I'll do it until 10. I'll do it as long as they want me, because I like having those radio relationships. And then I'll do all the shows. If there's a local podcast, I'll come and I'll do that. I'll let them come to the club. But part of me believes that, I don't know, that if it is a job, like this is your part of your job.
Right.
Like, don't forget that you're there to work. So if someone wants you to do Good Morning San Antonio on the TV show, yeah, I'm going in and I'm going to give it my all, because that's my gig, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So back to your special that's coming out, and you don't know when it is, but it's a Netflix special.
Netflix original.
How much time goes into preparing for that?
Well, theoretically 18 months, meaning like I think it took me 18 months to shoot the last one and then shoot the next one. The second you're done with your last special, you scrap everything and then you start working on other stuff.
That's what I wanted to ask you about, because you literally start your career over to a degree, don't you? Because you literally can't, you have to stop doing that and start with all fresh material.
But you have there are some things you had been working on that didn't make it in the special.
Right.
That you go, I think there's something there. Like I had these chunks about my dogs and my cat that I feel like could be there. But then the other part of me is like, I don't know, a lot of people have dogs, so it's going to be stepping on someone's material somewhere. But then, so you slide those in, and you know those work, so those become your new tent poles, is the bits that didn't make the special. They become your new tent poles, and then you write around those bits.
I see.
And then as your other bits get stronger, you start pulling down the tent and going like, let's see if these can be the new tent poles. And then you get to a place where you're like, okay, I know what's really working. Like for me, the last special I shot, I knew I had wanted that time travel bit to be in the special before, but it just didn't fit, and I felt like I was talking about my daughter too much.
Right.
And so then I was like, all right, I got to figure out this time travel bit. And then we had gone ziplining, and so ziplining and this, and then I was like, oh, I got 3 long stories. So I workshopped this ziplining bit every night on stage, every time I got on stage, just tried to figure it out. And so then you do, so let's say 18 months is the distance from one special to the next. Let's just give it 2 years.
Right.
So you'll do where it's like almost like a scatter shot of like material. Just doesn't matter. If I get off book, doesn't matter. If I go somewhere and it fails, it doesn't matter, for like definitely a year.
Right.
At a year, you kind of have refined it a little bit and you're like, okay, I know it works. And then you'll go for another 6 months of like whittling it down and going, all right, these are the bits I'm focusing on. And then I will spend 6 months knowing I'm about to shoot a special, really just going through and not adding any new bits, but taking these current bits, getting them shorter, getting an economy of words to them, and then reorganizing them.
Got it.
And then for me, this last special, the reorganization was happening up until the very last week I was shooting the special.
Wow.
Like, because I had a firm belief in having a good opening joke, like making sure you started off with a joke and not with a like, hey guys, it's so good to be here. I'm really happy to be here. I grew up here, like all that shit.
Right.
So I wanted a really strong joke. So I was taping my intro jokes, the 3 different types I was having, and I was sending them to the production company, Netflix, and my managers and agents, and getting their feedback on what they thought.
Really?
Oh.
Yeah. So like my opening joke initially was, and I didn't like this. I didn't like it because it wasn't conversational. I'd go out, cheers, not say anything, not say anything, not say anything, not say anything, just keep it. And then my opening joke was, sometimes when my wife's blowing me, I feel like she's gagging for the wrong reason. And so that was my opening joke. But then, and that girl that we were just talking about on the phone, Taylor Tomlinson, was like, I really like that joke. And I think it's a great opening joke.
Right.
And then, but I noticed that like, I was like, that's my strongest joke, is what I thought. I want to open with my strongest joke, close with my second strongest joke.
Okay.
Usually a lot of people do it the other way. Second strongest joke opens, strongest joke closes. I don't do that. I don't mind. But my set's a little different. Then building up to it, what I noticed was killing the hardest was this small chunk of 3 jokes that I had. And that all the set around that was really murdering. And I went, okay. So I took those 3 jokes and I put them in front of that other chunk. And then I opened with those and then restructured everything around that so that what was killing it like 12 minutes now is killing it 6 minutes. So if you're watching the special, 6 minutes in, you're laughing really hard.
Right.
And you're like, oh, I'm pot committed.
Right.
As opposed to maybe you're laughing or not 6 minutes, but at 12 minutes you're laughing really hard.
Got it.
And I did that mostly because the algorithm of Netflix is that they say people turn it off after 30 minutes.
Yeah.
So that's what they say. Everyone's special gets turned off at 30 minutes. So I heard that and proactively said, I'm going to front load my special so that all my best material is all in 30 minutes. And so at 32 minutes, when I say when in doubt, spread them out, that is without a doubt the tightest, best 32 minutes you're going to see that I have. So if you watch that 32 minutes and then turn it off, then God be it.
You're fine. Yeah.
But I believe that if you watch that 32 minutes, there's no way you're turning that special off, because that is I front loaded it, and not everyone does that. Everyone else thinks, no, you do the hour. And trust me, when I did my last special, there's a way to do an hour. You need to slow things down.
Right.
And what happens is at 20 minutes, you're murdering in your special. You're murdering. But you have to slow it down because you realize you can't contain that. You can't maintain that and so in my last special, at 22 minutes, I slowed it down. I told a slow story, and then I ramp it back up, and I kept going.
Wow.
But and then you'd slow it down and ramp it up. But you did that because that's how you work a club.
Right.
I looked at it and I was like, no, just work it. If you're gonna slow it down at 40 minutes.
Right.
Like slow it down to 32. Make sure that you've got them hammered for 32.
Right.
But that was me just maybe I overthought it. Maybe it won't work. But I looked at it and I was like, if you're only watching 30, this is the 30 I want you to watch.
Got it. Well, you mentioned sending clips to some people in production over there. Is that a weird process for you? I literally just did a podcast on the fact that I'm just so frustrated because that's my least favorite part of my life. Once I've created a piece of art, sending it to these people that don't understand it, that don't do what I do. What is that like for you?
Well, there's like number one, the executive producer of my specials, my best friend growing up. Randomly, he happened to become a successful TV producer. Randomly. I mean, I knew that that's what he was getting into, but it just exploded for him recently.
Right.
His insight was invaluable because the first joke I ever wrote was with him on a couch. And he thinks I'm hilarious.
Right.
Like, he knows me better than anyone that worked on anything I've ever done.
Wow.
And so his insight was pretty valuable in my opinion.
Sure.
So like I really took what he said. Managers and agents, sometimes you're like, did you even watch it? But it does matter. But I always take that with a grain of salt because I go, this is my art form. I'm not going to I don't want to go in doing something with an opinion that you guys really firmly disagree with.
Right.
And both of them were like either or works.
So it's a balancing act. You've got to please the powers that be.
My buddy Tony Hernandez, his name. He had a really discerning taste in humor, which worked for the better. It's so funny too because he's so politically incorrect. The guy I know is not the executive producer I know. And like I had a joke at one point where I referenced this Asian kid and I called him Long Duck Dong, and Tony goes, "Don't do that, man." And I go, "Why?" And he goes, "It's racist." Right. By the way, I could say that to Tony and he would never think it's racist.
Sure.
But he goes, "It's racist." And in my opinion, you play with Asian people in this story so much that I wouldn't give them a red flag to find in your act to call you racist.
Yeah.
So he says you need a different punchline for that.
Right.
And this is show night.
Jeez.
This is show night. We're in the green room in between first and second show, and he's like,
you did it in the first show.
I did it in the first show. He's like, don't do it this show. Change it. And my wife's there, and my wife's like, yeah, I think it's racist too. And I was like, wait, you've been hearing this forever.
Thanks for telling me.
I was like, why wouldn't you tell me this and then we're all just sitting there, and then my wife, the fucking beautiful idiot she is, just gives such a better line that is not even based in reality. It's not just based in whatever her stereotype is.
Oh my God.
And it was just such a better line because I was calling this kid Long Duck Dong, and then at one point I was calling her Tila Tequila because she's Vietnamese. It's a Vietnamese kid.
Right.
And then she goes, just call her Pikachu. And I go, what? She goes, Pikachu. I go, Pikachu's not Asian. She goes, it doesn't matter. And I said Pikachu, and it killed so hard because I guess Pikachu is just a character from Pokemon.
Yeah.
Pikachu.
And everyone's like associates Pokemon with Asians,
Oh
and so
my
it's just a
God.
weird connect. And it killed so hard, and in a weird way, it allowed a joke that was a little edgier later to kill harder because I don't look racist.
Right.
And so Tony was like invaluable.
Wow.
My buddy Tony.
They almost have to be stereotyping Pokemon to even laugh at it. Almost,
I heard someone say on a podcast, my buddy Big J, or maybe it was Louis J. Gomez, was saying on a podcast the other day, it is interesting when people say something's racist that isn't racist, like, and then they go, "That's racist," and they go, "No, that's you being racist."
Right.
They were talking about child pornography, and they were talking about there's a genre on YouTube that pedophiles get into, and they had to pull it down. They had to pull it down. It was like it was children eating food. There's this like genre of video on YouTube that was getting popular,
Right.
and it was like children eating like bananas.
And that was some weird sexual perverted thing.
So luckily, none of us were like, yeah, that is hot. Like, but clearly, like what they were saying was that there are people who see that and they're like, that needs to be taken down immediately. Doesn't that turn you on? And you're like, what are you talking about?
Right.
And and so, but like, so it's fun when you write a joke and someone goes, that's racist, and you're like, no, I'm sorry, I think you are racist,
Right.
and you're putting racial undertones on something that isn't there.
Right.
But that you said that is so true.
Yeah.
It's stereotypes. Like, we all think we don't have them, but we do have some.
So I've been dying to know the whole concept of bombing on stage. Not to bring up an uncomfortable subject.
No, it's not
but
uncomfortable. I love
what
it.
is? Are there specific moments that you remember? Like, are there specific shows that were just so dreadful?
Yes.
And what's
Yes.
that like? And how often do you relive that, or do you try to keep that out of your mind?
No, there's, legit bombings. There's,
Like
by the way,
where you literally just can't, no matter, it's just heavy lifting, you can't get this audience to get on your side?
oh yeah, I've done it. Oh, I've done it a lot.
Do you get mad at them? I've been in a room where a
Yeah.
comic has gotten mad at
Oh,
us.
of course. Of course, where you feel like they're lying because you're being honest.
Right.
I said one time, one of my worst bombs ever. The one that made me uncomfortable for like a couple days because it was some bombs aren't your fault. Like
Right.
I had some bombs in Miami where they weren't my fault. I wasn't being great. I wasn't being angry, but at the same time, they just didn't want to see a white guy.
Huh.
But you bomb and you have to be up there for an hour and it just is bad. And
Wow.
and you just get off and you're like, fuck. And then you refocus, and then the next night you come in with a different perspective or a different approach, and you do well, and then you feel proud of yourself.
Right.
I think most bombs come at it that way, where you go, I didn't do something right tonight, and it hurts. It's very depressing.
Right.
The next morning, getting up in bed is not a fun morning to get up.
Yeah.
But you have to go, I need to see the glass half full, and how do I rework that so that does work right?
Right.
When what really always hurts me is when you offend people in an audience and you didn't mean to, but you were trying to be, but you were clearly saying something that is offensive,
Right.
but you offended them, and then you fucked up that way.
Right.
Like that really hurts, because you go, I just was trying to be funny, and I know I said something fucked up, but I wish that you hadn't seen it as fucked up as I said it. I wish you had taken it differently, but it is my fault.
Right.
And then there's times where you try a joke and it doesn't work, and you get angry at them, and you spiral. Like
That's what I was wondering. What do you do in those situations?
you
You just spiral.
you try to learn something.
Yeah.
You try to learn something. I had a spiral one time. The joke, there was a group of Asian kids in the front row. It was a very small show. There was also an all-black jazz band on stage with me, and my buddy Ian Bagg, who's a great comic,
Okay.
right? all of us are me and Ian are on stage together. He's at a desk. I'm in a chair. The jazz band's there. And for whatever reason, the second I got up, like sometimes it can be the smallest thing. Like they go, ladies and gentlemen, Bert Kreischer. And I had a dream about this last night. I had a dream about bombing last night. I had a dream about bombing because I went to get up. I was at the Improv and I walked up the front and they're like, no. There's too many microphones. And I was like, what? And I walked up and there were like 9 microphones on stands like that,
right,
all on stage. And that you had needed to come from the side because that's where the spot they wanted you to stand on was. And I was like, don't worry. Like you try to play it off. You're like, don't worry, I got it. If that ever happens in real life, you play it off and you try to make a joke out of it that you're doing it wrong. But it was a taping and it wasn't going right. And then I just got so uncomfortable. By the time I got to the microphone, no one's laughing. And I look in the audience and everyone's 10 years old. Oh. And I'm like, oh. And then I'm like, what material in my head I'm running
what
through.
Do I have?
I don't have a lot of 10-year-old material. And I'm like, all right. And the joke I said was I don't remember the joke, but in the thing, but it didn't laugh and it didn't laugh. And I was like, I got to do 10 minutes. And I was like, I'm just going to bomb for this taping. And the joke I made, now mind you, let's just to put things in perspective before everyone loses their mind. This was 11 years ago. I had just done Byron Allen.
Okay.
And the joke I made was the group of Asian people in the front row. And I said, I just found out, you guys probably know this. I was talking to them. And I looked at Ian. I go, I just found out that Japanese people cannot understand Chinese people at all. And no one laughed. No one laughed at all.
Right.
And then I went, did you guys know that? And everyone was like, yeah, we all knew that. Like, not going like, oh, clearly he's trying to tell a joke. They're just like, yeah, we knew that.
Right.
And I was like, no, I didn't. I thought it was a little bit like Italian and Spanish, like pantalones, pantaloni.
Right.
And they're like, nothing. And I go, for real? And I go, are we not allowed to tell jokes about race in here tonight? And the black guy goes, apparently not. In the jazz band, apparently not.
Oh.
And I was like, wait, hold on. I was like, in my head, I go, when did this rule come on? And I go, oh, come on. I go, the joke I said was, there's got to be some parts that it's a little honest that we can talk about, right? Mm-hmm. I'm talking to the black guy now, and he's just looking at me, shaking his head. And I go, like, for instance, like, how confusing do you think Asian Facebook is? Like trying to tag yourself in a photo, like, is that me? No, that's not me.
Jesus.
And
you're just digging the hole, man.
It's getting worse.
No.
And now they're like, that's an old stereotype and it's not funny. I go, hold on. It's not.
Wait, somebody literally said that.
Yeah, that one of the Asian kids. It's an old stereotype and it's not funny. I said, no, it's not funny, but it's accurate. And he goes, excuse me? I said, it's accurate. And I'll tell you why it's accurate. Now I'm just explaining a joke.
And now you're pissed, right?
And now I'm upset.
Right.
And I look at the black guy, I go, come on. You're not telling me that you've ever heard that. And he goes, I've never heard they look alike at all. And I went, and so now he's turning on me. Now I'm getting fucking pissed.
Right.
And I go, you're telling me, to the Asian guy, that sometimes you don't think black people look alike? And the Asian guy's like, no, they don't. And I go, hold on 1 second. I go, you realize that this is based on a stereotype because you all have the same color hair. Okay? You all have roughly the same skin tones,
right.
And that is only the joke. If you went to Sweden and everyone had blonde hair and blue eyes, you wouldn't tell me that after a while you're like, which one's Sven? Like, you wouldn't say that. And the guy's like, no, I wouldn't say that because I'm not a racist. And I go, I'm not a and man.
It just turned into a fight.
It did not go well. And Ian Baggs next to me just laughing hysterically.
So how do you recover from that? What do you do to get yourself out of that mess?
You wait until there's some sort of calm in the storm and someone says, maybe you should get off stage. And you just
leave stage.
You get off stage and you just go, like I said, this is when it got really bad, is I said was going, racism is real. It is real. These stereotypes are real. They're real stereotypes. Stereotypes are based out of truths. You understand that, correct?
Right.
And by the way, I'm whittling down what is the essence of reality, but no one's accepting it. No one's accepting it, and they're not going to accept it from me. And I said, And I look at the black guy, I go, you clearly have experienced racism, correct? And he's like, I don't know, dog.
Oh, he wasn't giving you anything.
Yeah, and
man.
I go, you're telling me you've never had someone call you the N-word? Right. And he goes, no, and it better not start right now.
Ooh.
And I'm like, and at that point, Ian goes, ladies and gentlemen, Bert Kreischer. And
man.
I walked off stage, and there were comics in the back shaking. They were so happy. They were like, that was the greatest thing I've ever seen.
Wow.
Because they all agree with everything I was saying. Everything I was saying, by the way, the Japanese Chinese joke on my special killed.
Right.
Killed every single place I've ever done it.
Right.
But in this one room, these one group of judgmental Asian kids were not going to allow it to happen.
How long ago was that?
12 years.
Okay, so would that happen to you today in the exact same situation, or
no.
do you have the skills to get out of that?
No, so perfect example, last week I said, I think I told you know this one, but last week I was in Sacramento, and there was an Asian and a white guy in the front row, not being just doing crowd work. I had just given a girl right behind them $450 so she could go to Greece. I just taken it out of my wallet and given it to her so she could go to Greece because she was dating a 27-year-old and she was 18 years old. And I said, you need to get out of that fucking relationship. And everyone's cheering.
Right,
everyone's like, yeah,
right.
she is. That is a little fucked up. How long you guys been dating? Over a year? Okay, so he started dating you were 17. This is not healthy.
Right.
And her parents are with her, and her parents are like, get him, Bert, get him.
Right.
And the boyfriend's not there. And I go, you need to travel to Europe. And her dad's like, please. And I was like, how much does it cost? $800. I pull out $450. I go, here's half your trip.
Wow.
Save up, go to fucking Greece this summer.
Right.
Get out of this relationship. It's awesome, right? It's awesome. Do a waitstaff raffle. We give away $1,200 to one waitstaff lady.
Right.
Everyone gives all the fucking money. I pull a name out of the bucket. One waitstaff lady, sobbing, crying. She has OCD, and she has had a hard time getting out of her house, and she is late on rent, and now you just covered my rent from both months. Oh my God, people are crying. It's great.
How cool.
Say to an Asian lady in the front row, casually, we've had an amazing show.
Right.
Casually, are you Vietnamese? Because our best friends are Vietnamese. And she went, oh, no.
Right.
Like real offended. And I read that accurately, that if you don't like Vietnamese
She's
people,
being racist.
She's being racist.
Right.
If you're racist, there's no way that your parents are liberals.
Right.
There's no way that you were raised by liberal people and now are a racist. So your parents are racist.
Okay.
Now, if your parents don't like Vietnamese people, which they taught you, they definitely probably don't like your white boyfriend that you're with. And I immediately say, so have they seen him yet? And she goes, oh my God, I don't want to talk about this.
Wow.
And then the guy who's drunk as fuck, he's like, you're bringing up stereotypes that don't exist anymore. And now I understand that they're both lying to me.
Right.
That he's uncomfortable, she's uncomfortable, and the audience knows this too. The audience has now turned on them entirely. Fuck them, Bert, kick them out.
Right.
And I simply say, I apologize. I apologize. I wasn't trying to be racist. I was trying to make a joke. But if you interpreted that as racist, then that is on me. This is my show. These are my words, and I picked the wrong words. I apologize.
Wow.
And I sincerely apologize. I hope I did. If I did offend you, that was my mistake. And everyone's booing me apologizing.
Got
and
it.
I went, hold on. Oh, this is my opinion. In America, not enough people are listening to people when they get offended. And I want to be a part of the solution as part of the problem.
Right.
And I was the problem when I said something that offended them. And I want to be the solution now. So it is my fault. And the kid goes, I'm a fucking fan, man. I'm a fan. And I go, I appreciate that. I definitely didn't mean to offend you. In my head, I wanted to go, hey, man, I didn't say a fucking thing.
Right, of course.
I didn't say a thing. That's going on in my head. The old Bert is like, fucking destroy him.
Right.
Tell him all the facts you know.
Right.
All the facts you know about what just happened. And then he's like, can I have your shirt? I was like, here's my shirt. I gave him my shirt. I walked off stage, and everyone's like, you're a class act, Bert. And I was like, yeah, I'll be drinking myself to sleep tonight.
Yeah, no shit.
Fucking idiot.
Wow.
Stressful.
Speaking of the shirt,
Yeah.
how long are you going to do that for?
I think my goal was to get ripped this year so that I couldn't do it anymore, but that is not happening.
You ran a marathon. Come on.
Well, yeah, but then I've eaten like a beast for a month after it. So that was my goal, was to get ripped and yoked, so I had to wear a shirt.
Right.
The other goal was to wear one of those Bruno shirts, those see-through mesh shirts.
Oh, jeez. Yeah, jeez.
I don't know. Maybe I think my next, I don't know. in all honesty, I wouldn't mind retiring.
Well, I was going to ask you about that. What are your goals for the future? How long do you want to do this? I know for me, I'm at a huge transitional stage in my life where I'm questioning whether I want to be involved in the music business anymore, and I'm starting to look at other things.
Yeah.
You're obviously in the deep throes of it right now. Things are going fantastic for you. What do you see your future being like? How long do you want to do this?
I want to do stand-up forever.
Cool.
The part of the business, the rat race of stand-up is a little exhausting. Because it's not just stand-up anymore. Now it's like, it really is just very different. Stand-up used to be just get booked, see if your money can go up every year.
What's different about it now?
Now it's like, the story we need to tell to the buyers is that you're a theater act. You need to do theaters, and the money's not as great at theaters. So then you're like, okay.
So it's the strategizing of it.
It's strategizing, and so then they're like, if we want to do another Netflix special, and then I was like, I don't know if if it's really hard to tell if you. Of course, you always want to do specials, but you're like, part of me goes, let's just slow down. Like,
right.
I wouldn't mind doing a 4-camera sitcom. I wouldn't mind that.
Right.
I don't mind releasing free content. I like doing a podcast. I like creating content and putting it out there. I like shooting videos and putting them on Instagram. But I don't need to do any of the, like, I see a lot. I got this conversation that I think all my friends have got. Hannibal Buress, Tom Segura, Nick Kroll, John Mulaney. I mean, by the way, I say friends. Some of them I just know, but sure. Like the Ari Shaffir, and that is what the agents say is this. Not saying that all of them have unoriginal managers or agents, but they go, what you need to do is do a couple specials. Then you do theaters. Now we say you do theaters. Now we put you in a small supporting role in a movie, and then we get you in another small supporting role in a movie. Big tour, you got to do oddball. You got to do. It's a formula. Right. And they said that to me the other day, and it disheartened me because I thought, how unforward thinking is my team?
Right.
Like so you're telling me I need to follow in the footsteps.
But that's every team. In fact, that is every good team. That's what good teams do. They strategize. They keep you on point. They keep you on the formula.
But I want them to come up with an original formula.
Exactly.
I want them to say, think out of the box.
That's where I'm at with shit. In my life, that's exactly what I'm I struggle every day to get out of bed because of all of those people that try to keep me on formula. And at some point, days go by where you're not thinking about your craft because you're thinking about the strategy and you're thinking about. And I wondered if it is the same in your world, and of course it is. We're in the entertainment business. This is what we do, and we hire people to make those very decisions that we kind of resist.
It's exhausting in my opinion, because I go like. My buddy's shooting a movie right now, and he's gone for a month and a half in Atlanta. Yeah, Segura. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Shooting a movie, and he's gone for a month and a half, and it doesn't pay. The whole month and a half won't pay what he'd make in one gig. And I don't know. I mean, I'm sure he'll be fantastic in it. Mm-hmm. He doesn't care about the movie being big, but maybe this will change his career. But he's got a pretty great career now, and part of me thinks, why not double down on yourself and just go, like, why not have a team who's like really saying bizarre shit to you? Like one of the things I want to do, I want to get a ghostwriter, and I want to write a series of novels based on the adventures of the machine. Like a series of like. How
cool would that be?
Awesome.
Do you know what everyone says? It's a waste of our time. So then I go, okay, well, you know what I wouldn't mind doing is I wouldn't mind writing another book. I wouldn't mind doing a movie about I really love the movie The Four Seasons with Alan Alda. Mm-hmm. I said I have a bit about me and our four friends. I wouldn't mind doing a movie about that. I wrote a script that my buddy Tony Hernandez and I are making. We're probably going to go out of pocket to make it ourselves. But I wrote a script because everyone wanted to make a sitcom with me about being this partying dad or whatever it is. And I wrote a script that was just bizarre. It's just not what everyone else wanted.
Right.
And I submitted to my managers and my agents, and all of them kind of was like, okay, what is it? What is this for?
Right.
Like, what is this for? Was like the answer I got. And I was like, it's to be made.
Right.
And they're like, well, I don't think this is our next play. And I went, okay. And they're like, I think our next play is going to be you as like a party dad. And I was like, but yeah, everyone's thought of that and it's not working. But this is it. This is a script I wrote and it's really good. You think we could send it out to people, see if anyone's interested? And everyone. My agent didn't even get back to me. Didn't even get back to me about it. So then I sent it to my buddy Tony. By the way, to put things in perspective, my buddy Tony produced Chris Rock's specials, Amy Schumer's specials, Chris Rock's movie. He does Broad City. He does Inside Amy Schumer. He did Louie. He does Search Party. He does Samantha Bee's show. He does everything. He does everything. I sent it to him expecting the same response, and he's like, this is fucking hilarious.
Cool.
He's like, let's make it. And I was like, really? He was like, yeah, let's make it. Like, let's make one. Let's see if we can get someone to sponsor it. Maybe we'll make a few. Let's make one a month, right? We can do that. Let's figure out a way to make it different. Let's do a sitcom where we release it. It's free to the fans. We do a table read as a podcast. We do a podcast after we've shot the show. We release the show as a podcast.
What a great idea.
Yeah, and then
dude.
And then me and him are just sitting there like, yeah, fuck, man, let's do something different.
Right.
And then you're just like, but you can't fault your team because your team can't invest their energies in shit that they don't know that works. But then like I had an idea about one idea. And I pitch it to them, and they're like, well, we should sell that to... And I go, stop. I don't want to sell anything to anyone. Right. I just want to make it and put it out.
Right.
Like, I had this show, Something's Burning, that I just sold to Bill Burr.
It's awesome, by the way. I
didn't sell it to Bill Burr. Bill Burr just heard the idea and goes, I'll pay for it.
Right.
And so it's not a ton of money. It's nothing out of Bill's pocket.
Fucking hilarious.
And it's doing really well for the Bill's channel, All Things Comedy, which I own a part of that, but Bill's deficit funding entirely.
Right.
And so... it's just been, it's like, I don't even know how many views it gets, but like a couple 100,000, maybe 500,000, 300,000. And it's doing good for Bill's channel and my channel. But I want to do that for me. I want to make my content on my channel where people go, God, that's a destination channel for me.
Right.
He does a travel show. He does his drinking show. He does his podcast. He does a solo podcast. He has this scripted series. Right. That's where my head's at.
And you said you really have no interest in going back to network TV for anything, right?
I was watching this show called Carnival Eats the other day. Mm-hmm. I'm not shitting on the show, but the host is very uninspired. Yeah. He's not a great host. He's a very sweet guy, but he's very hacky and campy, and easily a producer could say, this is what I didn't like in television, was a producer being like, so give me a real big outro. And you'd be like, why can't we just find a real one? Right. As opposed to like, and that is 2 bites away from goodness. Like, whatever,
Fucking producers, dude.
Yeah, and so almost 300,000 views. So I'm watching it, and I'm just hate watching him. Right. I'm hate watching the production and what they're doing. Things I'd never allow. I never allowed lights on set. Like they'd want to set up lighting panels to get beautiful shots. Right. But what happens when you do that is if you set up lighting panels, then the people you're trying to interact with for real feel like they're being on TV. Right. So they start acting. Yeah. And they can't get their lines right. By the way, they're just supposed to be natural, but they flub their lines and they say stuff like, can I take that again? Right. And you're like, no, you can't you're not directing this. Right. And then they do it so often that as a host, you know what they're trying to say, and sometimes you mouth their words with them. Yeah. And I watched this guy mouth the words of this guy's response to this sandwich, and it drove me nuts. But I couldn't help but love the show, right? I couldn't help but love the show. Huh. And all of a sudden I had this moment of clarity where I realized the show's not about the host. The show's about the show. Right. If you're doing an eating show, all I want to see is the food. The host, just don't make it so clumsy I can't get to, don't distract me.
Just stay out of the way.
Stay out of the way. Right, and I literally was like, I always wanted to make a show people tuned in for me. And now I realized it was never about me, it was about the show. And here I am fucking it up, trying to be the reason people watch it. Right. And they just want to see roller coasters. Wow. They just want to see destinations. They did like, and so I was at that moment, I was like, oh, I don't think I'll ever be able to do that again.
Wow.
Yeah. That, and they'll never be able to pay me enough.
We're probably getting close here on time, but I just wanted to ask you something. Do you feel like you've made it? Have you achieved what you want to achieve yet? Or if not, what do you think is missing?
Partly I've made it.
Right.
Partly I've made it. Because
you are successful at doing what you love doing?
So imagine if, to put this in music terms, imagine if you're dating a chick who runs a venue in your hometown and you're constantly trying to get booked, and then there's a period where you're like the draw in your hometown, say in Austin, she's giving you Saturday, not Saturday, I don't know if Saturday nights are good, but she's giving you Thursday nights, and Thursday nights are selling out consecutively. And then you get discovered and you go out and you do a whole road tour and you come back to that venue and she's like, can you do Saturday night this week? And you go, of course. And she's like, actually Saturday sold out. Do you mind doing Thursday, Friday, and Saturday? But you're not you're not drawing nationally, right, but you made it there. I've made it to that level.
Got it.
Meaning comedy clubs, which were my place where they'd give me the weekend. I now can sell out an entire weekend and add shows at any comedy club in the country.
Right.
But so for me, that's all I've ever known. So yes, I've made it.
Right.
I had a big goal. I think we talked about this on my podcast, but a big goal for me was to make $1 million. I wanted to make $1 million.
Right.
And I've blew past that this year.
Yeah, you've done that several times.
And so I was like, for me, that was whoa. I was shocked. I was like, get at it. I thought I'd get there.
But it's not what you think, though, is it?
It's not what you think.
No,
it's not what you think at all. By the way, nothing changes internally.
Nothing.
And you just happen to spend a little bit more money.
Yeah.
And you're like, whoa, okay. And so then I was like, now the goal is to make that twice. And right now I think, we're doing good this year. But now the thing is, for me is can I do a successful theater tour? So there's always that one thing to the next level. And
so
then
incremental steps. It's the next step, whatever that may be for you.
I don't think if you ask Rogan, who's definitely made it,
absolutely,
he would be like, no, man, I'm not even halfway there. Because for him, you redefine it along the way. And for him, making it is having his own pirate ship and his own compound and doing his own thing and having no bosses, no bosses, but just I think for me, I'll have made it when I have an office with a legit office with a production studio inside there, an editor, maybe 3 employees. I'm not losing money overhead. Right. I got my podcast studio out of there. I'm doing theaters. I'm doing clubs, and I have that. I have all that, and that is all making money. And then I get a phone call, and they're like, "Hey, do you want to do a 4-camera sitcom?" They're going to do 13 out of the gate. If I ever get to that place where CBS, I don't even know if they'll exist in this time, but CBS is they want you to do a sitcom. They're willing to greenlight 13, and I'm sitting in my office with my employees who were all creating products, and we're all making things online that are as successful as my podcast. I don't need it to be a hit. Just we're doing stuff, and this entity is paying for itself.
Right.
And I'm touring theaters and doing clubs, and then that call comes in. Then I'll when I drive over to CBS Radford, I'll be like, I fucking made it. That's when I'll be like, I made it, because I think my goal has always been to do a 4-camera sitcom. I think those are coming back now with Roseanne, but my goals have shifted.
Yeah.
And now what I do, with my podcast and just shooting stupid videos and creating my own content, now that's the new goal is some just badass, the autonomy of this, this right here. By the way, this is such a badass setup.
Thanks, man.
It really is. I'm really blown away by how beautiful this looks and how little Halston works for me. You really need to step up your fucking game.
I was going to say,
shit,
Halston, you're really slacking.
Well, listen, dude, I can't thank you enough for coming on. In fact, I have to say this. Your podcast is the reason that I'm doing a podcast. You inspired me to do this, and I could never explain to you the life-changing things that are happening to me because of this podcast and what it allows me to do and how it allows me to step outside of the music business, which I've come to a point that I hate so much about the music business, and I'm finally talking about it openly, and for better or worse, it's helping me. And I just want to thank you for inspiring me to do this. And also you inspire me because you are one of these guys that just seems to be filterless and very honest. We've talked about this,
thank you.
but I think about you a lot, and honestly, I think to myself, when I'm struggling with certain things, I literally will think, I bet Bert would handle this way, and I know that's kind of scary, but you have a genuineness about you that I find very, very refreshing.
Oh, thank you.
And I appreciate that in your podcast and everything. And I'll just say that when you do finally get the 4-camera, special, or the 4-camera show,
Yeah.
come back here and tell me if when you finally made it, if it's everything that you expected it would be.
It won't be.
It may be. It may be. But I can't thank you enough for coming on and
I told you one of my goals, one of my dreams, and just like we said, like these are all things that my management company and agents find ridiculous. And one of my dreams, just like that line of the Machine Adventure books, one of my dreams is I don't know the guy's name who does it in country music, but a Jimmy Buffett, like a boat rock, yacht rock album
Right.
of like inspirational drinking, hey, there's not a care in the world songs, where I do like just an album of like here's 12 beers to paradise or whatever the fuck. I don't know.
Will you let me produce that for you, please?
Dude, I'll let you also write it for me.
Awesome.
I'm gonna come up with how many songs do you need for an album? Like
10.
10. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll come up with 10 titles. Okay, 10 titles, and I'll slowly think of like I'll bring them in real remedial, like what my chord knowledge is, my chord structure,
Right.
and then I want you to take it as a joke, right?
Yeah.
And make it the way that if you heard it, you'd be like, this fucking guy's doing all the tricks.
Right,
all
right.
the bullshit tricks.
Every cliche.
Every cliche, every like, of course there's a what's the
banjo and
what's
a
the,
washboard.
What's the drum? Yeah, what's the drum? The big steel drum. It's an island song. And so I want to make that album. And there was a guy, did you ever hear about John Benjamin? He did an album called I Think I Can Play Jazz.
No.
Have you ever heard this? I think it's John Benjamin.
John Benjamin.
Jazz. I can't play piano. Okay, this is him. He did an entire album. What's this? I don't know that. He did an entire album, basically with a jazz band. Hired an entire jazz band,
Right.
not knowing how to play piano and play piano to
This is
it.
fantastic. Let's make that
Okay,
record. Seriously.
I'm being dead serious.
I am being dead serious.
Okay, I'm shaking on this.
I'm serious, dude. We are going to make this record.
We're gonna make a record.
that.
Is this not brilliant?
This record, I'm going to say this. This will be the last record I ever produce. It'll be the swan song of my career right here.
Yeah.
Let's go, dude.
Dude,
Oh my God, it is dreadful.
but I bought the
Oh,
album.
it's fantastic.
I bought the album.
I bought the album.
I bought the fucking album and I listened to it and I was howling laughing.
Oh my God. Dude, seriously, we got to do that.
Dude, I'm telling you, the more do you know who Wheeler Walker Jr. is?
No.
Oh yeah, we got to get him on here.
Can you put a Wheeler Walker
Yeah.
Jr. song in? Wheeler Walker Jr. Okay, so this is okay. If you don't like Secrets Ruined, do not listen to this. Okay.
Okay.
So hit pause for a second. So Wheeler Walker Jr. I'm just play it. Just play it.
It's so beautifully shot, too. It's just a gorgeous looking video.
It's a good song.
Oh, he's burning stuff now.
It is a good song.
So I bring him on my podcast and I say to my wife, will you play a song for my wife?
Right.
My wife has no idea what she's about to hear, and he plays this acoustic for my wife.
Oh my God.
He plays this acoustic, and my wife's a big country music fan. He's on my podcast soon. I got to get him on your podcast.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Oh my my God.
He'll talk shit about the music industry all day. He hates it.
Yeah. Well,
So we're gonna come up with my Jimmy Buffett record,
dude. It's a brilliant idea.
And
how fun would that be?
And it's gonna be Bert Kreischer's "Fuck It, I Want to Drink" album, and it's just songs that inspire you to want to drink.
I love it.
And it'll be 10 songs. Some will be 2.5 minutes, just great. Like I learned how to play all Jimmy Buffett songs when I was in high school because it was all simple chord progressions.
Yeah, absolutely. Dude, that's fucking killer.
All right, we're doing it.
We're doing it, man. Bert, thank you so much.
Thank
man.
you. I appreciate it. This has been a blast. This is anytime. I can do this anytime.
Awesome, buddy.
Anytime.
I appreciate. Hey, by the way, are you a golfer?
Yes.
Dude, we got to golf.
I would love to do that. The problem is whenever I'm home.
Yeah, well, we'll find a time. Let's
taking
get out on the course.
I'm doing a little bit of a tour right now, and then I'm taking a chunk off again. Right. So we'll do it then.
Let me know, man. Let me know. Let's get out and play.
Done deal.
Awesome, buddy.
Awesome. Thank you.
Right on, dude.